dialed is not in service at this time.
The four common approach paths are the spiral method, the grid method, the line method, and finally the quadrant method. Now, each of these methods are very important and are used in different scenarios in accordance to the crime scene. For example, the spiral is used to examine the area for evidence in a very wide circle, beginning at the core of the crime scene or at the perimeter and then moving outward from there. The line method is mainly used when finding certain evidence such as bullet shells or casings, and the grid is used when there's a lot of debris in the crime scene and it may be hard to pinpoint certain evidence. And finally, the quadrant is used when the crime scene is very tiny, for example, a crime scene that may have taken place in a bathroom or inside of an elevator. And also important to know that the line method is mainly when two CSI investigators start together at opposite ends of the crime scene, going through to ensure that all evidence is accounted for.
Okay. So tell me, what is your name?
My name is Brianna Martinez with 2 N's.
Who are you in relation to the victim?
I was the victim's best friend.
Where were you the time of the murder?
I was actually with the victim in his dining hall.
What do you recall from the scene?
Well, the reason why I was even with him and at his house was because he was hosting a dinner party as kind of a farewell as he was embarking on a gap year to Europe. And it was kind of like a farewell party, just saying our goodbyes for that year. And I just recall us chatting, everything was going fine. And then all of a sudden we hear this very loud bang, almost like a door fell over or something really big just completely shattered. And not even 5 seconds later, this hooded figure just comes darting in, to the dining room, strikes my friend over the head with what I can't remember exactly what, but it appeared to be some type of like black, weapon, not a firearm, but something that definitely hit my friend, the victim, so hard over the head that it appears that he died almost instantly. And that's all I can recall.
Thank you. How did the victim appear before he died?
He appeared normal, fine. I mean, everything was going smoothly. No one even could have guessed that such a tragedy would have occurred. I mean, everything was going pretty normal. Yes.
So my last question is, what was the last conversation that you had with the victim?
The last conversation was we were just chatting about what his plans were for his gap year, because that was the whole reason I was over at his house in the first place. And he was just telling me all the things that he wanted to do in Europe and explore. And I was just listening to him, and it was a normal night, like I already said. Everything seemed fine. However, now that you do bring up that topic of conversations, I do remember my friend having to stop, our conversation as someone had called him over the phone, and he went into his bedroom to pick it up, and I could hear that he got very agitated over the phone at this person. I have no idea who called him. But from the sound of his voice, he was definitely not happy. I don't know, again, if there's some connection between the murderer or the suspect and whoever he was talking to over the phone, but I definitely think that it is worth looking into.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, no problem.
The main goal of a CSI agent is to collect evidence and make sure that there is no contamination, as it would make the evidence useless. Gloves and face masks are primarily used to make sure that there is no skin, hair, fingerprints, or sweat particles that end up on the evidence. Booties and jumpsuits make sure that there is no fabric particles or non-suspect footprints are on the scene. Sometimes encapsulated suits are used if a crime scene is dangerous or noxious. CSI agents almost never carry badges or guns, as they don't interview subjects.
Before analyzing and examining the crime scene, images and photos are taken that visually conveys all aspects of the scene and can be used as physical evidence within the courtroom. The three types are overall, mid-range, and close-up. Overall photographs, as the name implies, capture the overall aspects of the crime scene. Their purpose is to show exactly where the scene was to the exclusion of any other location, and to show all boundaries of the scene. Mid-range photographs transition the viewer from an outsider looking in perspective to a more involved perspective. Items of evidence and their spatial relationships are shown. And close-up photographs are deliberate depictions of individual items of evidence. They must show all sides of the item and clearly show any marking defects or other identifying features. A medical examiner is a physician authorized by law to assess the death of a victim and the cause of how they died under certain legal conditions. Medical examiner cases are deaths that fall within the authority of the medical examiner. A medical examiner also looks into the medical history of the deceased, examines the crime scene and statements from the witnesses, and analyzes the evidence found on the body, such as bodily fluids.
The crime scene sketch is comprised of 5 components, that being the scale, compass, key, the actual sketch itself, and the title block, which contains important info pertaining to the location of the crime scene, as well as the creator of the sketch. Crime scene sketch should include the date and time. How to take measurements. Triangulation, baseline, fixed line, and polar coordinates are the 3 techniques for taking measurements for a crime scene sketch. All subsequent measurements of the crime scene are in relation to the 2 starting fixed points that are identified by each of the 3 techniques. The most common type of crime scene measurement, baseline measurement, are typically applied to indoor crime scenes, which would make the most sense pertaining to this crime scene as it took place indoors.
And it's very important to package the physical evidence inside of an envelope to prevent cross-contamination. If evidence is cross-contaminated, it can be deemed irremissible and cannot be used in court, which is why it's very important to properly package and collect any pieces of evidence that can be found at a crime scene. Now I'm going to be explaining how to package and collect each piece of evidence that is at this crime scene. For this crime scene, the 4 pieces of evidence we have are 1 bodily fluid, that's blood, 1 hair strand, and then we have 2 pieces of physical evidence, which are the phone, which is assumed to be the murder weapon, as well as a wallet that was found left on the crime scene. And today I'm going to be showing you how to label and package each one. So to package the hair strand, you would use a druggist fold or a paper bindle, and you would place the hair in the bindle and seal it as so. As you see here, the bindle forms a triangle, and you slip it here into this hole, and then you would seal it and place a chain of custody on the top and seal it with evidence tape. And the reason we use a paper bindle is because this ensures that no evidence will escape as it is shut on the sides. Now going on to the blood. Since the blood is still wet and not dry, we extract it and using a sterile cotton pad or cotton swab and place it into a vial. We then place that vial into a envelope, and then we send that to the lab for testing. And then we have left our 2 pieces of physical evidence, which are the phone, the murder weapon, and the wallet that was left at the scene. These can be placed in evidence bags. Again, with the evidence seal, it's very important that each evidence has the evidence seal containing the person's initials as well as the date on it, and stamped on it will be the chain of custody. And that's how to package and label each evidence. Okay, so here is how to package and collect a hair strand. So here I'm going to be taking a hair strand found at the crime scene, and I'm going to be packaging it in a bindle, or also known as a druggist fold. So here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna take your piece of paper, you're gonna open it up, and you should see two distinct lines running down the center of the paper. Now, it's very, very, very important that you use tweezers or forceps to pick up the hair and place it in the druggist fold. Place it in the middle, then you fold one side over, the other side over, you form a triangle, flip that over, and then you slip the triangle into the opening that is formed at the bottom of the paper. Now the druggist fold and paper bindle, it's sealed off on the sides, meaning that the evidence cannot escape. Now the last part of the druggist fold is to seal it using evidence tape, meaning whoever collected the evidence on the gray evidence tape would have to put their initials and the date, the full date. For example, today would be October 20th, 2022, and my initials are BM. So I would write BM October 20th, 2022 on it. And then on the front, I would label it with an evidence seal and a chain of custody. And I would fill out the front, I would fill out any remarks, and then whoever gets it would sign off and collect it and pass it around. And that's how you would package a hair strand.
Chain of custody is a paper trail documenting when, how, and by whom individual items of physical or electronic evidence come into contact with others. It is important to use the evidence in court to assure the court of law that evidence is authentic. If the chain of custody is broken, evidence may be suppressed or deemed inadmissible, meaning it cannot be used.